right, we're back working on the master closet again today. The other night, I got the base for the cabinet that goes in the center of our closet mocked up, screwed together, and kind of put it loosely on the bottom of the big cabinet. Everything fit well. Then it got pitch dark and I had to hang it up for the night. Today, I actually had the day off from work. Got a bunch of projects to tackle today, so went ahead and just took a day off just to try to get caught up on a few things. So back working on the cabinet again, and I'm installing the framework on the back of the cabinet that's going to support it away from the wall. The cabinet itself only is about a 10-inch cabinet, so it's not coming out deep enough to support the shelves and the closet rod and all that. So we are building a 6-inch spacer on the back out of 2x4s, and then we'll cover that with 3/4 boards and then trim it out and everything, make it look like it's always been that way. So let me show you exactly what we got going on. All right, so I got the cabinet laying face down on the sawhorses here. This is the frame that I built the other night. Again, just built it up out of 2x4s and put it together with structural screws. And just now I drilled and installed the base on the cabinet with cabinet screws. I like these GRK screws. They're great because they got a built-in washer. They've got a star head, so you don't have to worry about the Phillips or flatheads stripping out. They've got a great cutting head on them here, or cutting tip. It actually helps to bore into the wood. I pre-drill some of them, depending on what it is, just to make sure it doesn't split, but really I don't really have any issues. My cabinets have always pre-drilled just to, have an abundance of caution. The bottom of this thing is actually made out of MDF. So I pre-drilled it. I didn't want to take a chance on, splitting it or having a chunk come out of it. So I got 2 of those cabinet screws on each side of this frame, holding it in place. You can see the MDF here broke as we were taking part of it apart the other night. So what I'm going to do is put a line down through here, and then I'll cut that busted piece out and I'll replace it with a piece of solid. The 2x4 framework runs all the way down the back of the cabinet, and then it'll be anchored to the top here. We've got plenty of good wood to anchor the top to, and then it'll get anchored on the sides and everything else. And then our filler boards will get placed. They'll get nailed up to those, and then I think it's going to work out great. Not really concerned about the part of it being made out of MDF, because once we get this frame put in there, it's going to be plenty strong. Oh, on this side over here, where the closet rod hits, we'll have to go to the inside and put a piece of 1x4 for the screws to go into. Again, because I don't trust this MDF to support a fully loaded closet rod. It's one thing if it's just some sort of paneling or something getting attached to it, but in this case, it's going to have a closet rod attached to it in 2 different places. So I'll actually take some 1x and back up this MDF. That way you don't worry about it pulling out at some point. So it's going to look great, I think. We'll go ahead and get some more pieces cut up here on the miter saw and start getting all this stuff screwed together. I'll catch you guys up in just a bit. All right, so I got my verticals cut and I've installed the spacer blocks on the end here. I towed them in with some trim head screws. Again, GRK fasteners, love these things. Star bit, but number 8 2-inch trim head screws. And they're great because they just get right down in there. They're countersunk. They're nice for trim work, literally, because you can just go by and put a little wood putty on top of them and you're ready to paint. But they're nice for this too, because you don't have screw heads sticking out, which will interfere with your paneling and everything later on. So I've got the spacers secured there. I still need to cut one more board that goes in between the 2 verticals, just like down here. And I'm getting ready to attach the verticals to my base plate, and I'm going to tow them in, but I'm also going to put these blocks on the back here just to give me a little bit extra support and a better place to screw those on. I'm not talking about a whole lot of weight here. I mean, it's not like this thing is going to be supporting a lot of weight, but we want it to be solid, give us a good place to mount our panels on the side, and then also it's going to help support clothing racks, which by the time you get a bunch of suits and whatever on there, it gets pretty stinking heavy. So we'll go ahead and get these verticals attached, and once that's done, we'll be ready to go ahead and put our last horizontal in up there, and then start cutting some pieces of 3/4 board to fill in. All right, so we're ready to attach the verticals to the base, and I've already done this one, but I'm going to change this just a little bit. You can see we put this cleat on the back here to support the upright, and I like it, but I ended up having to toe nail this one, or toe screw as it were, down through into the base, which worked okay, but I thought I'd try something a little different. On this side, I actually cut a chunk out of my nailer, and that way it'll just fit up in here. I'll run a couple of screws through into it, hold it nice secure, and then I'll be able to put a screw into the top and the bottom of this vertical piece, back in the front, I guess. Once that's done, if I need to, I can always go back in and tow it as well, but I think I'm just going to try it a little bit differently this time. So we'll get this clamped into place. Use these big old vice grips. They're pretty handy for holding stuff in place when you need an extra set of hands. What usually happens is you get it in perfect position, then you go to put the first screw in it, and it shoves it out, and then it turns, or it just doesn't bite in as good as it should, and it's sitting off of the wood a little bit. So if you use these vice grip clamps, holds it in there nice and tight. There's no way it can walk on you once you start putting the screw in. I like them too for welding. I use those a lot in my metal shop, holding pieces of metal together to get them tacked before I go back in and weld everything up. So they're pretty handy. These are vice grips. I've got like 3 or 4 of them that I use when I'm working on projects. All right, let's go ahead and put a couple of screws in. I'm going to use these GRK multi-purpose screws. They're number 9s, 2.5 inch long. Just like all these other GRK screws, they got star head in the top, and they got this cutout in the tip that helps them bite. Acts like a little drill bit, and they do a real nice job. They're great for general construction, and then of course they make all sorts of other stuff, cabinet screws and everything else. We're going to use these construction screws to put this block on the back here. That one totally missed. Hey, it happens. People never make mistakes on TV, it's always perfect, but we keep it real here. Go over just a little bit so I can actually get one in there. Got it. All right, so that's not going anywhere. We'll go ahead and get one more screw in there. Now our clamps out of the way. That's good and secure. Now we've got a good block on the back there, and we'll be able to go ahead and put our vertical up. Make sure it's flush. I'm just going to use this piece of scrap here. That way everything's good and flush with the back. And then I'll run a couple of screws in it. I'm going to go ahead and start one before I hold it up there. That way I'm not trying to hold it level and flush and get a screw started. So having one in there ought to do it. And I can't even put the clamp up there if I want to. I think I can do it without the clamp, but we'll see. Hear Amber coming out to check on me.
Looking good.
Sometimes you have to run it in and out a few times to use it like a drill.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
So the first time, if it's a little bit loose, you can run the screw back out, run it back in, run it out, run it in, and that kind of drills it out a little bit, and it'll suck in tight. Get back, make sure everything's still looking flush, and we look good. So we'll be able to go and put one more screw in there, and we'll have this one done. How's it going, honey?
Good. I didn't know you were recording.
For posterity.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thanks. All right, so that's good and tight. Next, we'll go ahead and work on the top. We'll get that horizontal bar in up there, and then we'll attach the two spacers for the verticals. We'll attach them through the cabinet. We'll go into the cabinet and use some cabinet screws to attach them. And then we should be good to go. We'll be ready to start cutting some panels and fill in on the sides. So now they got both the verticals done. I'm putting the horizontal together. I've already got this side done. So now I'll go ahead and put this one together. And I am pre-drilling these, again, just so it doesn't fight me quite as much when I'm putting it together. So we'll hold this nice and flush here. And again, you can get a piece of scrap just to kind of hold you straight. That way you know you're going to be lined up once everything's said and done. My drill bit slipped. Wasn't pre-drilling anything. Right, some of these number 9s. And now we'll do the same thing down below. Push that one together a little bit. One of these boards is a little bit racked, even though it's top choice lumber. There's different grades of lumber. This is top choice. It's designed to be, or it's supposed to be straighter and less knotty, less twisted. Generally it is, but still every once in a while you get one that's a little bit screwed up. Yeah, pulled it together nicely. All right, so now our horizontal's on. Now the last step is to secure the spacers from behind. So I'll go into the cabinet here and actually do one from inside the cabinet. Maybe I ought to squeeze 2 in there, depending on how it's situated. So I'm going to go underneath and get those on next. All right, so this MDF panel that broke actually had the groove in it for the back panel and for the bottom of the cabinet. So when I cut the new piece, I had to mimic the original so that those pieces would slide in there. It's either that or you try to cut those tabs off, but that kind of removes the structure of the cabinet. So ended up having to take the table saw and use that to mortise this piece so that it would slide over the existing. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on that, and then I'll put it on there with some trim screws. This side will be done, and we'll be ready to do the long vertical piece. Amber, meanwhile, is over here working on some shelves for Grant's closet.
Hello.
How's it going, hon?
Great.
What you putting on there?
A shellac primer. It's it'll help with these knot holes.
Ah, okay.
So
Wood is so knotty.
yeah. Stop.
So you put the shellac primer on there, and then you'll put a good
And it dries
coat of oil
quick.
base.
I just finished this one and it's completely dry. Like I can go ahead and flip it over.
Wow, that's nuts.
I know, isn't it crazy?
Huh. So the theory behind it is that it seals the knots. Knots are bad about bleeding through have to put your paint on there. So in order to prevent that, you put the shellac primer on there. These are just shelves. It's not like you're making a cabinet out of them, but we still want it to look nice and last forever.
And I'm also going to use this primer on the cabinet that you're working on too, for a couple of reasons. But the main is to hide the stain, and it kind of covers up the smell too.
Oh yeah, that's good.
So
it does have a little bit of a funk to it, doesn't it?
It still kind of tastes or smells. It tastes moldy.
I was gonna say, how's it taste?
It smells, just a little damp or moldy, or I mean, it never was. I cleaned it out with Clorox, but
yeah, the kitchen was so gross. I guess I'm not surprised.
It smells like the kitchen. It really does.
Which was nice, nasty. So the frame's done. Now we're just applying the side panels here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this piece put on the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and get some pieces on both sides here, the vertical pieces. Once we get those cut and fit, we'll be ready to take this bad boy upstairs, get it installed, and then Amber can start working on painting it. All right, here's where we're at right now. I ended up adding an additional brace here in the middle. Put this 2x4 across the back of the cabinet and screwed through the cabinet into it as a way to stiffen and reinforce the middle of the cabinet and stiffen and reinforce these verticals. What I found is that this one was crowned a little bit to the outside. So when I went to put this board in place, it was stuck out in the middle, wouldn't go in. So then I realized that the board was crowned a little bit and was holding it out. And then this side was crowned toward the inside. So I ended up putting a stiffener on the middle there as well. And so that's got both of them secured now. So we'll be able to put the boards on the side and should be good to go. One thing I did realize though, after kind of mocking this side up, is that once I get this piece of 1x or 3/4 board in place, I'm not going to be able to fasten the cabinet to the wall. What we're going to do is mount some cleats to the studs, and then we'll sit this cabinet, the frame of the cabinet, up over the cleats, and then we'll screw through the frame into the cleats to hold it in place. Since we can't go through the back of the cabinet because the back of the cabinet is now 6 inches away from the wall, we don't have any screws that long, clearly. So instead we'll do a cleat on the wall and then actually fasten the frame to that. So I think that's actually going to work out better. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this piece off, and then leave the piece off the other side and the luan, and then that way we can go ahead and get this thing mounted to the wall and secure, and then I'll go ahead and just trim in around it and finish building everything out that way. So that's the plan. So I'm going to finish up a few more things here, and then we'll actually carry this big boy upstairs and get it set in place in the cabinet, or the closet, excuse me. Then I can mark where the cabinet's going to go, and then we'll move it out of the way, screw the cleats to the studs in the wall, and then sit it back in place and fasten it. And that should be that. Very exciting. All right, with some help from my father-in-law, Gene, we got this bad boy carried upstairs and wedged into the master closet. It was fun. I say that sarcastically, but it's up here. So now that we got it in here, we'll be able to get everything figured out as far as where exactly we're going to mount it. I think we're going to center it up with our overhead light there. And once we get it all centered, I did leave these boards off so that we have access to the framing. And we'll screw a cleat to the wall in behind here, and then we'll screw through the framing into the cleat horizontally and anchor the cabinet to the wall that way. Still needs to go, 2 or 3 more inches in against the wall, but it's going to fill the space in nicely, and then it's going to provide a great spot for us to anchor our closet rods. So this side of the closet is going to have 2, an upper and a lower, because I've got a bunch of suits and dress shirts and all that sort of stuff. It'll be nice to be able to spread that stuff out. So that'll get anchored on the inside of the cabinet here, and then over on the wall here, we'll have a reinforcement board kind of screwed to the studs there. And the other end will get mounted to that. And then on this side, we're going to do an upper shelf and then a lower closet rod. And that'll be for all the Amber's hanging stuff. And she's going to have some storage on the floor as well for shoes and boots and that sort of thing. And then over here, where we got some temporary hanging storage. It's crazy to live like this. We got doors and all sorts of things in here. But over on this side, we're going to have shelves that I'll build in this section. It'll be for shoes and purses and accessories and all sorts of stuff. So we got it all figured out. We just got to make the magic happen and get everything built and get it put together. But I think I'm going to take a break for the evening. So we're going to wrap this up. Next time we'll be anchoring the cabinet to the wall. And we'll go ahead and get the filler pieces built and get all those attached. Begin to get this thing trimmed out and get it look like a nice built-in cabinet here. So making good progress.